Spanish Inquisition. It's head first only television.
Good evening all. Can you hear me? It looks like you can. Ryoko Music, hello. And no doubt Array of Emotions is with you watching as well. Hello, David. Goodness me, what a day. What a week. Despite saying that, no, I'm not going to do any more DIY for a bit, I ended up putting the Venetian blind that I pulled off the wall last week back up and sliced my thumb open in the process. And I've also been up ladders and stuff this afternoon pulling Virginia Creeper off the house, so I'm knackered. I've also been completely down the rabbit hole this afternoon putting together a new song. So Ryoko Music says, why did you do that? Just entertainment value. I've actually no idea how I did it. I think it was probably drilling a hole in the oak beam that I've now got stuck to the wall. It's funny, isn't it? You look at a wall and you think, oh yeah, that's flat. And then when you try gluing a 2.5 metre long strip of wood to it so that you can put a Venetian blind on the wall without pulling it out of the masonry, you find that it isn't flat at all, and it's about a centimetre off at either end. Ryoko Music says you should probably stop DIY. My thoughts exactly, although I do have to get the lawn cut tomorrow because I've got visitors at the weekend. So, yes. Array of Emotion says, hello. Walls in old houses are rarely flat. Yeah, the thing is, this house, it's not exactly old. It's 30 years old. But yes. So DIY is now complete. I'm rather hoping that means I get a good night's sleep tonight, because being woken up at 5 o'clock by the sun streaming through the windows, even with blackout blinds, is getting a bit old, a bit like me. So, it's Thursday. Welcome once again to my 10th live Thursday webcast on Twitch. How the hell have I been doing this for 12 weeks? Good Lord. If you're watching on Twitch, hello. Thank you for watching. Please follow me if you don't already, or friend me, or whatever else you do. It all helps my progress towards affiliate level, which at this point is lurking somewhere off in the distant horizon in about 2035. But hey-ho, you carry on as best you can. I actually ticked off a few more of their challenges, which you have to fulfill last week. So thank you very much for playing a part of that. Array of Emotion says, time does funny things during lockdown. Oh, tell me about it. This afternoon, I had me lunch. I had fish cakes for lunch. How about that? Sat down in here and thought, right, I've got an idea for a song. And then when it finished rendering and Arturia software update started its prodigious update to 7.2 of the V Collection, which took about half an hour, I realised I hadn't shaved or had tea or got ready or anything else. So it was like, oh crap. So I rushed around and put the lights on and the webcams, the lava lamps on at least. And I'm completely unprepared apart from the page of notes that I did first thing this morning while I was having breakfast. And Ryoko Music says, fish cakes, cod ones. They were very, very nice, with some Blue Dragon sweet chili sauce, because sweet chili sauce, hot sauces, yeah, love it. So I've got the sniffles, I've got hay fever or something else. I'm a complete physical wreck. I ache all over. I've not even got me not even got time to put my elbow brace on. So, yeah, cheers. And Mel says, I'm sick too, took the week off. Yeah, I heard, mate. I'm sorry you're under the weather. I hope you feel better soon. I guess shutting off social medias and all that sort of thing is a really, really good way of feeding your head and making your brain return to a saner operating space. It's something I should do. And every time I see a news report about the stories that Facebook gives prominence to, which you can find out from third-party websites, they're all far-right American wingnuts, and Facebook is actively propagating their stories and their media. And yeah, every time I use Facebook now, I feel like I ought to wash my hands. But anyway, enough of Facebook. YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, there are playlists of these Thursday night shows, which has now got hours and hours and hours of content of me sitting in here completely losing the thread. There are also some slightly more educational Sunday evening shows called the 50/90 Show, which are designed to help people taking part in the 50/90 Songwriting Challenge, which is that you write 50 songs in the 90 days between July the 4th and October the 1st. And it's huge fun. And this is the 8th year I've taken part, and I've written at least 50 songs every year that I've taken part. And it's given my songwriting skills a kick in the pants and really, really helped me to sharpen up what was, to be fair, something I was pretty rubbish at before I started. And I've made a lot of friends that way as well. So hello to you all. And the playlist for the 50/90 Show has 4 episodes on it at the moment. And believe it or not, the Sunday episode, episode 4, all the audio levels worked. I didn't have to boost stuff. And I really apologise for last Thursday's show because it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? Even my audio editing skills needed extra help trying to get that onto YouTube. Ryako Music says, hope you feel better. Thank you. Array of Emotion says, yeah, you sounded good on Sunday. This is the first week for over 2 months where what I've got in front of me has not changed from the previous stream. Now, I guess that's kind of a good thing because it means that stuff isn't breaking or going wrong anymore. And it also means that I've got my gear acquisition syndrome, GAS or GAS, my latest attack of same, under control at last. Although I must admit there were times this week when I was thinking, well, maybe I should get a proper loop pedal, because I've got a little Jamman XT and there's a looper in the Zoom G3. And I really struggle getting the Ditto looper, Ditto Jamman Express. I struggle stepping on it at the right time. The Zoom is a little easier because it at least has a tempo you can set. So if you know a loop pedal that has a setting where I can set the BPM digitally by dialing it in rather than tap tempo, please let me know. Array of Emotion says, don't give in to gas. Yeah, definitely. So, have I finally got my act together in here? Time will tell. So, Array of Emotion says, you sounded good on Sunday. Yeah, it must have been the live show you did. I really enjoyed that. That was a 29-minute set that I did on Saturday night for lockdown live streamers. And I got asked back to do the next one, which is on Saturday, August the 22nd. So may well be taking part in that. But again, I may have visitors. So if that's the case, I won't be taking part in the 22nd of August one, and I will be taking part in here in VEMS4, which takes place in September. So stay tuned. Ryako Music says, nice shirt, by the way. Yes, we're showing respect for Mr. Townsend. This from his live acoustic tour or solo tour that he did down at the Trinity Centre a few years ago, which was a stonking gig, and I actually got to shake the man's hand afterwards, which was lovely. So, no tweaks or updates to the rig this week. I'm trying to avoid going down the rabbit hole of software synths and things like that. I've just downloaded an update to the V Collection, which I've already got, which is Arturia's collection of emulations of vintage synthesizers, and that should keep me going for a while. I've also finally started down the rabbit hole of teaching myself how to use Isotope's RX audio editing software, because for some reason this was picking up a really nasty buzz when I was recording some acoustic guitar this afternoon. I have no idea where it was coming from. Moving the microphone around didn't do anything to stop it. I have a feeling it might be the mic mechanic misbehaving itself again. And I still haven't got the mic mechanics USB software link running. So I'll try that after the stream and report back next time. This thing and this thing, absolutely loving the new microphone arm. It is very, very robust when compared with the knockoff rubbish one that I had before that we talked about last time. And I have now stuck the microphone on top of the stand rather than underneath, which involved unscrewing these little devices and turning the microphone upside down, because as you can see, or maybe not, the Shure logo is still the right way up, even though the microphone's upside down. Figure that one out. Right. 5090 music making, which is kind of why I'm here talking about making music in the first place. It's been a really odd week. Let's call it up, because I think on the Sunday show, I just started putting together a track which ended up being called Go Put Your Thing Down. And it got away from me very nearly. It took me nearly a week to get the thing into a shape where I thought, yeah, that's coming along. Okay, that was Ableton throwing a head fit as it just switched microphone feeds, as it does. But I think it's fairly safe to say I got a little bit carried away. All right, Ryako Music, I know you put together Ableton sets that have like hundreds of tracks, but for me, this is a bit of a monster. So what are we on? 29 tracks, and there's all sorts. There's a Moog Modular, there's a CZ101 emulated bass, there's only 3 tracks of vocals, and one of those is not even me. But the more I added to it, the less I thought this is actually working, which is kind of not what you want when you're putting together a piece of music. And I don't know why it got so far off what I was doing. Whether it was the lyrics that I wrote didn't sort of fit with what I'd originally intended, but I kind of went back eventually and found some that worked. But it just really, really was a bit of a bear. Ryako Music says, I'm trying not to laugh. I have lots of layers, mostly for panning and effects. Yeah, I'm really beginning to find the limitations of this machine. And it's a Core i9 9900. It's running 3.6 gigahertz. It's got 32 gigs of RAM in it. It ought to be fairly robust, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch the preferences so that the sampling rate is set to 512, because, as I said on Sunday, this thing's using pretty much all of that. If I call up Native Instruments, oh, there it was. Yeah, so its input latency is 710 samples. So even at 512 samples, and I have turned off my screensaver, it's still struggling to put everything. All right, I am running, MIDI key to key and OBS Studio on this. i9, is that 4, 6, or 8 cores? Array of Emotions asks. I think it's 8. It may even be 16, but certainly lots, which was very good when SETI at Home was still running, because I was going through work units like nobody's business. But this is, yeah, it shouldn't really be struggling. It is the Spitfire Audio BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package, and the amount of samples and things that it contains, which is making this thing work. There are settings I've noticed for the number of samples and the way that Spitfire Audio handles those samples, and I haven't actually tried changing those from the factory defaults yet. So I might have a go with that over the next couple of days. But with everything set to 512 samples, this is what I ended up with at the end. And I'll play it, and then I'll talk about some of the effects and the things that happened in it. So here we go.
No
mystery. Make no mistake. Don't put your thing down. Don't put your thing down.
Okay, go put your thing down. Okay, go put your thing down.
They've been ignoring basic guidelines on how a human should behave. We have to step in from the sidelines. We've got a world we need to save. If we don't act, we face destruction. Don't leave the planet to its fate. I have the simplest of instructions. Act now before it gets too late.
This point in history is make or break. No room for mystery. Make no mistake. Don't put your thing down. Don't put your thing down.
So Mel managed to identify where the sample's from. And it is from Men in Black. It's Tommy Lee Jones talking to Kay just before he goes and beats up the rather wonderful Tony Shalhoub playing Jeeves. So if I solo it and zoom in, we can play him.
Okay, go put your thing down.
And that's it. So thank you, Mr. Tommy Lee Jones, for your guest appearance. Ryako Music says, I win. Do I get a prize? You do. I shall have to send something over to you. So I will be doing that. Incidentally, a very large squishy parcel arrived this afternoon, and it has the words Star Trek on the shipping customs label. So I'm assuming that's a birthday present from you guys. I haven't opened it, but if it is, thank you very much. You're very kind. So, Ryako Music says, he. Yes, I thought it might be. So what's going on in here? Well, there's pretty much all of the Spitfire Audio BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package. So there's most of the woodwinds. There's pretty much all of the brass. For those of you watching on YouTube, what am I talking about? BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover is a core... well, it's not the core, because the core package is something else. It is a very cut-down version of Spitfire Audio's BBC Symphony Orchestra virtual instrument. There are 3 versions of it. There's the version I've got, which is the Discover package, which runs to about 250 megs. There is the core package, which is €299 and is, I think, about a gig. And then there's the utterly insane professional level, full-on version of the full BBC Symphony Orchestra, which runs to, I think it's €799 and it's 600 gigabytes of sound samples. It's insanely detailed. So for things like when you, so what have we got here at the moment? We've got the horns at the moment. If I play the horn on the push that I've got here, if we can find it, let's just, why is that? Oh, my catchphrase, there we go. Why is that? Oh, I see. Once again. Right, so if we play the horns, it's always the same sample, which stands out a lot more when you use the staccatissimo sample. So it starts sounding artificial. The bigger versions do something called round robining, where they will actually have multiple samples of each of those notes. And when you've played one, it goes, all right, I've used that one. I'll play the next one next time, and then the next one the next time, and then the next one the next time, until you get back to the loop. So it does very clever things to make it not sound like a bunch of samples being played by somebody who has no clue what an orchestra does, just pushing buttons on one of these blue and white things. But, and this is the great part about the Discover package, is that you can either spend €49 and download it now, or you can go to Spitfire Audio's website and fill in a very simple questionnaire about why you use VSTs and orchestral sampling applications. And when you finish that questionnaire, you email it off to Spitfire Audio, and then 2 weeks later, they will sign you up for their mailing list email, which is always very interesting because there are tutorials as well as we've brought out this new product announcement emails. And you get a download for running Spitfire Audio's app, which just obviously with the Microsoft Access just said, do you want to run this? So there it is. My products, Discover, BBC, Symphony Orchestra, all nicely installed. The thing is, and the reason why it's fun to install the Spitfire Audio app anyway, even if you're not planning to play around with the full Symphony Orchestra, is that this labs section is a bunch of totally free virtual musical instruments, and as I say pretty much every week, they're bonkers. Frozen Strings, London Atmos, the Trumpet Fields one, which is, where's that? It's there somewhere, is ridiculous. There you go, Trumpet Fields, with a picture of a basketball for some reason. You may see the link there. I don't. Mel says London Atmos for the win. They're wonderful, but there is a really, really untogether, very drunken trumpet on Trumpet Fields, and I've used that, and I've used it, and people liked it, so I've used it again, and I will be using it again as well. So get yourself the Spitfire Audio app, install it, go to the Labs tab, and then download all these free bonkers musical instruments. So we've got the horns there, which are brilliant. I think of all of the instruments in the BBC Discover package, it's the horns that really do it for me, closely followed by the celli, because I love cellos. There's just something, again, I've mentioned Apocalyptica on this stream before now. Any band who get 4 cellists together to play cover versions of Metallica songs, I mean, it could have been invented for me. So the first thing and the weirdest thing is on this, if we go to the vocal submix, it's got Neutron 3 as usual, but I did something I haven't done before with the chorus. And that is, I used an isotope plugin called Vocal Synth. What is Vocal Synth? Well, it's kind of like a synthesizer crossed with a voice processor, signal processor. So it has the traditional old vocoder, which is one of the things that I've been using here, but it also does things that allow you to change the formant qualities of the vocals that you're throwing into it. So if I disable Vocal Synth and just play the chorus, and I'll solo this again. So this is literally just me hamming it up, being very pretentious, doing sort of spoken word vocals, which will come in a second.
This point in history is make or break. No room for mystery.
You get the idea. So it's fairly dull and boring because my voice is, I have an exceptionally boring voice. No, I make do with what I've got, but I can jazz it up a bit. So if I say the same things with the Vocal Synth plugin running, it sounds a bit different.
This point in history is make or break. No room for mystery. Make no mistake. Go put your thing down. Go put your thing down.
Yes, indeed, says David. Ryaka Music says we can't all be David. This is true. Oh, to have a set of pipes like Mr. Townsend does. So, yeah, you can do all sorts of things. You can prat around with loads and loads of different vocal treatments, some of which sound more sensible than others. So if rather than this version, I select, say, the Curious Little Creature preset, things sound a little less magisterial, shall we say.
This point in history. This point in history is make or break. No room for mystery.
Or how about this?
Make no mistake. Go put your thing down. Go put your thing down.
I mean, that one, it completely renders it incomprehensible. So, yeah, that's probably a win for my vocals. Okay. Yes, that's quite enough of that. So I did some weird things to the vocals, which people seem to like. There's also two separate bass lines going on. So there's the Moog CZ101, which is one of the well, they're both from Arturia's V Collection, but the CZ101, just how fat is that? And it's sort of taking Kraftwerk's We Are the Robots type synth riff and really jazzing it up a bit. At the same time, I've also got a Moog Modular emulation, and this is the one that has the rather intimidating user interface. This is the one where we were talking about skew amorphism a couple of weeks ago. You can unplug all the cables and plug them in just as you could on a real Moog Modular system. And of course, it shows you, if I turn me off, even shows you what key is being pushed down on the keyboard. Is that really necessary? No. Is it really cool? Absolutely it is. So with the two together, they work magic in the stereo field. So I think I'm going to be using that combination of presets, because I'm afraid, yes, they are presets, but I'm going to be using that combination again because it works so well together. So the CZ101, the preset is from the sequencer patches, and it's just called Catch This. And then the Moog Modular is a preset, which is called You Know It. Simpler? Well, no, because I made a discovery playing around with the CZ101 bass, and that happened because I threw brute compression, which is just one of the Ableton effects, onto it. Now, brute compression is, as we talked about compression on the 5090 show a few weeks ago, very, very high ratio. So it's almost infinite. So a ratio of 12.6 to 1, which means that input audio, the input signal is 12.6. For every 12.6 dB you increase the input signal, the output signal increases by 1. So it's pretty much flat. It's also got a very, very fast attack. Remember I said when using synthesizers that very, very fast attack on compression can do strange things to audio signals? Well, it did. And the thing was, I kind of like it. So if I play the CZ101 bass with just the bass and not the compression, listen what it sounds like. So it's okay. It's a nice little bass line. But when I drop compression on it, all these extra sort of vocally noises came out from the back of the sample. Have a listen. Sounds like somebody breathing. It was such a weird effect. I thought, I'm going to keep that. Now, what I assume's happening is that the compression is doing odd things to the reverb tail from the CZ101 sample itself, because if I go to the actual screen for the CZ101, you can see it's got a certain amount of reverb applied to it, and it's also got internal compression as well. It's doing stuff inside, and it's the tails of this reverb, I think, that is messing with compression, and probably something with the delay as well, that is really producing interesting artifacts in the signal. And I love discovering little things like that. So the synth mix on this, and the bass line was what kicked me off doing it in the first place. And I was really happy with the synth sub mix. So why was it that when I started adding orchestra to it, it started to get away from me? I eventually figured out that it was the combination of horns. Another thing that I do when I'm putting in orchestral arrangements is that I will solo one track. I'll loop it. So we'll just play this section. We'll make it repeat. So here's the horns in fact, we'll use the horns in the chorus. So this is what's going on while I'm saying my magisterial advice for planning for the planet's future. And I've just realised I shouldn't be doing that. I should be playing this. That's more like it was sounding when I made it. So what I tend to do is I then hold control down and just sample trombones. And the bass trombones. Ryako says, too much stuff with the same frequencies. I think what was happening was that I hadn't worked out these harmonies properly. And even though the basses are buried right at the backs of the mix, it was throwing me off. And it wasn't until I went back and did that process of soloing one or two tracks together and then adding another one in and then muting the first track that I soloed and listening to the second two, and doing that with the brass, and then again with the strings as well, because the violins, the cellos in this track are actually just doubling the bass line from the synths, but the violins and the basses are also. So again, the violins on this are pizzicato. Cellos are just doubling the synth, and then the basses are grumbling along at the bottom, as basses always should do. So it took me a while, but I think I eventually got the two sets of harmonies with the brass and the strings working together. But it wasn't until I thought, let's try the percussion one, because if we just go to the basic drums, it's from Superior Drummers. I think it's which drum kit did I use? I used the Metal Foundry Bleed drum kit. Ryako Music says, can you solo the drum beat and the orchestral elements only? I kind of want to hear them on their own. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So here's the drum kit on it. Well, it's got, in fact, let's turn Neutron off. So this is the raw drum kit from Superior Drummer. So it's a very, very metal, very, very high aggressive snare. With Neutron doing its thing, it sounds slightly fatter. And that really, because I'm all about the transients, it really brings out the transients from the snare hit. But it's still, in the mix, it sounded really, really insipid. So if I turn that off and play this, it was like, yeah, this isn't really working. So this is what it sounds like in the mix without the orchestral percussion.
I'm here to take care of this planet. I'll do it with...
All right, so, and this was the first time I'd actually used the orchestral percussion. And if you're going to use orchestral percussion, you're going to use timpani, aren't you? I mean, let's face it. So Kettle Drums, yes, that gives me a little bit more pomp. So the Kettle Drums at the beginning. Can't hear a thing. Why can't I hear a thing? Oh, because I've turned them off. There we go. So that gave me a little bit more. If I unsolo that. So now when I play it, you've got this. Whoops. It's kind of getting there. That actually, that sounds pitchy to me. That's supposed to be a C, but I may have inadvertently changed something while I was demonstrating this. So I promise you, it did sound better in the original mix. Then I went to the untuned percussion section, and to give you some idea of what that consists of, there is a very nice triangle, shades of Tom Waits, and I mean, let's face it, the whole package is worth it just for that gong. But it was the very sort of aggressive snare sound, a military snare sound, so I used that. So really, really aggressive rim shot on the snare. And what I'm doing is basically mimicking the snare hits on the Superior Drummer. So if I play the percussion submix, with Superior Drummer, you can hear how much more beefy it sounds. Let's play that again from the beginning. And then with everything.
I'm here to take care of this planet. I'll do it with or without you.
So let's get rid of the vocals.
Pity those of you who ran it quite clearly didn't.
So for Mel, this is the drums and the orchestra together. That's it. Just play the bridge so you can hear the bridge with the... So there's even a tambourine going in that section. Ryako Music says, I think the drums and orchestra are good and you might not need the additional synth stuff. Interesting you should say that, because bear in mind, this track took me a week to beat into shape. And this afternoon, no, I'm not going to save any changes to that. This afternoon I worked on, and in fact I've just uploaded it to 5090, literally 5 minutes before the show started. This track took me 4 hours, and it's pretty much as complicated, although I've edited some of the unused tracks out of it. So again, this track started off with drums, bass and guitar. Literally, that's it. And, well, I'll play you the full song, see what you think.
They told me keep it simple, stupid.
when it comes to writing pop songs. I guess I'm not up to the task. The truth is painful, though it's easy to state. Vocal take war on the floor over 17/8. I'll run with each idea that finds me. Push it till it falls apart. There's no restraint that's going to bind me. I've got a passion for my art. And at this point I understand that things have gotten out of hand. The truth is painful, though it's easy to state. Vocal take war on the floor over 17/8. Now the embellishments are multiplying, and each time I look, there's something more. It's just that I find this all so satisfying. So here's my new orchestral score. The truth is painful, though it's easy to state. Vocal take war on the floor over 17/8.
But this is the acoustic guitar I use for that. This is my Oxfam Shop 30 quid special, which is an old battered Hohner guitar, and he said smashing it on just about every piece of furniture I've got. Like I say with the mic placement, this has never sounded as good as when I just poked the SM7B at it. What do you know? It's almost in tune from this afternoon. So I think that is the first acoustic guitar I've used this summer. In fact, I don't even think I used it during form. in February album writing month. Ryoko Music says, this track you just played is a lot more cohesive. Yeah, that's one of those tracks that I mean, that's only about the third time I've played it through, other than mixing and mastering it ready to upload it to 5090. I haven't even checked it plays on the 5090 site yet. I should really do that once this stream's finished. And listening back, I can always tell when something's gone well because I just sit here going, is that me? So the secret clearly on this track is to use Arturia's rather wonderful Mellotron. It is the Melotron that, I mean, Mel said during the comments in chat just what a glorious sound it is. And it is just a bonkers piece of kit. The fact that every single note you play is on a piece of tape round a couple of spindles, and pressing the note makes you play the note. And they're quite long pieces of tape. If I remember rightly, they're something like 24 inches long, so a couple of feet of tape. But you can hear them loop when they loop. But what a glorious sound. So all I'm doing, I mean, it's not exactly a complicated piece that I'm doing, but it is. And the reverb is actually built into the Melotron. So again, there you go. That's the actual flight. I mean, skeuomorphism be damned. I've got a flywheel that's moving around. Oh, that's wonderful. So there's you can actually build in tape flutter. How amazing is that? So and we're totally into Tangerine Dream, aren't we? Bit more tape saturation. All the tape saturation. So basically, all these dials. Asitlan says, just joined. Oh, Mellotron! Absolutely. So we've been enthusing about the skeuomorphic aspects of the fact that this actually has a bloody flywheel with a belt drive on it. Velocity, volume, 80, flutter. It's just gorgeous. It is quite simply just a gorgeous bit of kit. And Robert Fripp has 3 of them, although they no longer go on tour with him. And in fact, here's my nerd cred. One of my friends actually designed some of the switching software for the Mellotron's internals. So when I went up to a synthesizer event with him a couple of years ago, he said, "Oh, we're just going to call in at the factory." It was a large shed in the back of somebody's gardens, but inside was nerd heaven because it was where they make Mellotrons. And because the tape gauge that they use is non-standard, they actually cut, I think it's 1/2-inch tapes themselves for the Mellotron drives. And there were bits of tape all over the floor. There was bits of aluminium over the floor. And there were various Mellotron cases in various states of undress, including one that had obviously just been spray painted black. I said, "Oh, that's very nice." And they said, "Yeah, that's one of Robert's." So he'd had one of his in for a refit. Array Motions said, do they still make them? Yes, they do. You can still buy one, although I think, if I remember correctly, and I'm probably wrong because on most of these things I usually am, the waiting list is something like 2.5 years. But Mellotron. Ashland says, love Mellotron's first encounter, the Beatles, of course, but big with OMD, my synth-pop heroes too, all over architecture and morality, and what a glorious album that is. And the Moody Blues. There are presets on this that may sound familiar. I mean, New Order. They use one. What else have we got here? I think we may have White Wedding Mix. Well, did Billy Idol have one? Could well have done then. Lots of references to Tangerine Dream, who were, I think, after the Moody Blues, it was Tangerine Dream who I heard. I thought, oh, that's rather good. But there is even a Zeppelin track. So it's layering the strings and a guitar pluck. Ryako Music says, I'm digging this. Mate, I could just sit here and play with samples of this, and frequently do. And that's... So what I really, really want Arturia to make is an emulation of an Onde Martineau. That I've got myself a theremin. It's the Onde Martineau is the other track, the other instrument that it's like, yes, that's the sort of noises I want to make. But Good Vibration. Good Vibrations actually was neither. Good Vibrations was a very odd instrument that was built by a saxophone player. And I think it's called a saxomin or something. It works on the same principles as the theremin and the ribbon controller on the Onde Martineau. But it was a one-of-a-kind instrument that they brought into the studio that Brian Wilson took one look at and went, oh, yeah, that'll work. Lovely, lovely piece. Gravity Eyelids. So in every single tape patch on this, you could think, oh, I could make a prog epic with that. Kind of Rick Wakeman-y, isn't it? I don't know if any of you lot are familiar. There's a Japanese synthesizer player who used to get played by Alan Freeman on his Saturday afternoon rock show on Radio 1 back in the 70s, called Isao Tomita. And Tomita specialised in using 1970s synthesizers to recreate classical music hits. So the first album of his that I bought, and I've still got it on vinyl as well as buying it on CD, is Snowflakes Are Dancing, which has a whole bunch of Debussy tracks, from the Sunken Cathedral to the Gollywog's Cakewalk and a whole bunch of stuff. And every time I hear some of the patches on this, I'm immediately transported back to listening to Alan Freeman on a Saturday afternoon. Attila says, "Oh yes, no to meter well." Absolute genius. Got taken to court by Gustav Holst's, I think it's daughter Imogen, who really did not like what he did with the Planet Suite. Right, there's King Crimson in a nutshell, isn't it? So, yes. What can you do with a track, with a preset that's called that? But it's accurate. So, if you want to get your 60s prog sound nailed, I mean, I'm just going to play this last section again because Atitlan didn't hear it, and I want to hear it again because I'm kind of freaked out just by how well this one turned out. So let's just hear the playout again. I rather like that, he said modestly. So yeah, that's two tracks in about the last 10 days, which is not the best of production rates for a 50-90 challenge where you're expected to put together a track in every other day or thereabouts. So I need to get my act together over the next week or so. Ryako says, I would love to get the Arturia V Collection, but I'm worried my computer can't handle it. This collection seems huge. It doesn't push my... I don't think the V Collection pushes my computer as hard as the Spitfire audio stuff does. And the version 7.2 of the collection, which literally I finished downloading 5 minutes before I went online just now, has been re-engineered to significantly reduce processor load, according to their notes. So it'd be interesting to see if I notice a difference in that over the next week. But lots of synths, not a lot of samples. Samples are always heavy. Yeah, good point, mate. That is exactly the point, because, and Ryako Music says, Labs just destroys my CPU because they're samples. The trick with the synths, with things like the CZ101 and everything else, is that they are emulated And because a synth is a bunch of electronic circuits, you just do the maths as to what the signal will sound like going through a particular set of electronic components, which is, I guess, why the things like the CZ101 and everything else can work with fairly minimal processor load. I'm guessing the Mellotron, they just had to use samples and then manipulate them. But with the rest of them, so what have we got here? Pigments is just a software synth. And Pigments isn't part of the Arturia V Collection, but you get something in the Arturia V Collection which is called Analog Lab 4, and that includes a bunch of Pigments presets. So you can play with Pigments even if you don't own it, because it's incorporated into Arturia's V Collection. It sounded so good, I went and bought the full package, and it is gorgeous. It's very, very good at all sorts of very, very cool pad sounds. So this one, which just comes up to give me a little bit of prog flavour as the arrangement starts to get a bit grandiose, is this. And you can barely hear it. So why can't you hear it? What am I? Let's solo that. It's getting a MIDI signal through, so what have I done? CZ101, you're... Oh, blimey. That's a... Start as you mean to go on, mate. Having that as a first synth. My first synth was a... what was my first synth? Oh, a Whiteface ARP Odyssey that I've still got. It goes out of tune when the temperature in the room changes by more than 1/10 of a degree. That's not making any noises, so have I got the range wrong? Very collectible. Now, mate of mine, when he discovered, well, in fact, the aforementioned Norm, when he discovered that I actually owned a Whiteface ARP Odyssey, he sort of stepped back and said, "Have you any idea how much that thing's worth?" No. I was quite surprised. Right, that's not playing, so I'm not going to worry about it. Oh, I see. See, catchphrase. Why is that? Oh, I see. It's because the playhead on the track, which you can't see because it's behind me, if I get rid of me, the playhead was here. So the master volume fader had faded down so that you can't hear anything. So if I move the playhead back over here and then return to what I was talking about 3 minutes ago, which is the Pigments, which is there, you should now be able to hear it. There we go. I'm an idiot. So much digital goodness. So it's manipulating a sample and doing a bunch of stuff with it, but there are a whole bunch of other things that it does. So it's also a wavetable synth. Oh. Yeah, moody or ambient stuff. You ain't kidding, mate. It's and the bass on some of it is glorious. And I have, I have to say, I have drowned everything in at least 3 different separate reverb units. But, you know, it's me. Of course I'm going to put reverb on it. So if you want a really interesting bunch of very, 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 very cool sounds, you can't do better than Pigments, I reckon. So yeah, and again, you put a synth in front of me and I just go down the rabbit hole, and I mean it's coming up on 5 to 9. How are you guys? Good? Do you want me to carry on for a bit longer, just waffling, or are you eyes glazing over at this point? Because I can keep blathering on about synthesizers and stuff for us till the cows come home. Well, come home, get milked, go to sleep, get up and go back out into the fields the next day. One of the, I mean, this is the trouble with all these plugins. And I mean, if I go through, Mel says I'm good. Okay, I'll carry on then. So you can see this collection here is the Arturia V Collection. The Oberheim is an extra. When they released that, actually, Lance says synths are super addictive. You think? That's just part of the collection. Yeah, I'm a bit of a synth nerd, to put it mildly. I have been for 40 years. But yeah, the V Collection, the analog lab, you can actually run them all standalone. So if I open Analog Lab here, what did you say? Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just saying, you think, with my collection of synthesizers. So you can run Analog Lab standalone, and it lets you access all the different emulations. So I can pick a single instrument. So the Buchla easel, which was the bonkers daft thing that we saw a couple of weeks ago. Or the Mini Moog. Oh, right. I know what's happening because I've still got... Let me close down Ableton, and then Ableton won't get confused over what's supposed to be making the noises. So now I can probably still use the push. No. Computer says no. So at this point, I can now go over to the Korg M3, which is MIDI'd to all of this, and it will now play the Mini Moog. Or not. Why not? Oh, I think I know why. Or do I? There we go. That's ridiculous. Atitlan says, Buchla and clavinet are the only two in the collection I've never used. Can never get Buchla to sit with anything else. It is a really, really odd... I mean, it's... The West Coast minimalist crowd sort of embraced it, but quite why, I don't know. It's more or less a sound effects machine if I play a few of these. So that is making noises. It's just they're a bit rubbish. Ryako Music says, I love sound effects stuff. It's always fun to layer them. The trouble is the Buchla doesn't really have any really nice fat lead sounds that you think, oh yeah, I could use that. I mean, this is about as good as it gets. Which has so much lag on it that you can't really do anything with it. Organs as well are a bit weird. Ryako Music says, I love that. Yes, thank you. Ryako Music says, I love that. But I think that for me, the Buchla it's a performance instrument. I mean, it's obviously designed as a sort of, look at me. And the sounds it makes are, listen to me. If its report card was made public, I think the words does not play well with others would be on it at some point. But, you know, there are some decent sequences in it. Atitlan says Vox is nice, use it a lot. Yeah, there are some very strange things in here. Yeah, special effects. Takes me back to 1970s television programs for schools because they all had theme tunes that sounded like that. So from the Buchla, you've got an absolute monster of the Hammond B3, and if you want to go prog rock, you get your B3 on. Eat your heart out. So much lovely stuff on this. And you can even add a Leslie speaker is basically a huge wooden box with a speaker on a spindle that moves round and round. And as it moves round, you get a phasing effect. And with Hammond organs, you actually had a lever at the side of the Hammond where you could vary the speed at which the Leslie speaker would spin, which is how a lot of the very, very classic Hammond sounds are got. So here we've got one, Fake Leslie 05. And you control the sounds on a Hammond using drawbars, which you either pull out or push in. And some of the patches on here are actually given the names of which drawbars are pulled out. So this is just first 4 out. Did that camera just... How very odd. Went black. No idea why it did that. Black is the new... Indeed, sir. Indeed. So, I completely lost my thread with that black string. Yes, the Hammond, I absolutely love. The Mellotron in here. The Matrix 12 is the only thing I've got in here that really I haven't investigated much because it scares me. It is an absolute beast. And somewhere there is a button where I can actually... There we go. So you can see just how much there is to fiddle with. Conquer the beast. Matrix does crush it. Oh yeah, absolutely it does. Let's close that. So Matrix 12. Let's find a string. So Starshine. What's that one like? Yeah, adding fourths tends to make weird things out of your chords. Let's try and find another one. Oh, there's another pad. Ancient Voices. Gorgeous stuff. The thing with Analog Lab, though, is that it lets you put two things together. So if we go, let's uncheck that and go back to the on. So the piano piece in the first piece that I played you is actually this. No, it's not. It's not. I'm lying to you. It's this one. Yes. As they say down here in Bristol, Gert Lush. And I could play with that damn thing for... Well, you could make an entire album just with that particular preset. Absolutely glorious. So, yeah, I can't imagine why that screen suddenly went black. That's going to be an item of concern, unless it was the screensaver kicking in, which I thought I'd turned off, but never mind. So, what was I going to say? Yes, virtual synths these days, old school hardware things like all this bunch of stuff here. I mean, they're very pretty and they make nice noises, but when you consider that I've got a Juno 6, which is it a Juno 6 or the Jupiter 8, if not both, built into that Arturia collection. So the Juno 60 doesn't even do MIDI, although you can, I am informed by my mate Aid, that you can actually retrofit MIDI onto it. Yet to find a virtual synth that can make bass lines like a real analog hardware synth can. Mel says they take up a lot of space. They sure do, and that stand was an absolute beast to put together, but I'm very pleased with it. So, on that note, it's gone 9 o'clock at night. It's getting dark in here. I've just realised from the camera shot, it's a bit gloomy out there. So I think I will call it a night for tonight and go and nurse my aches and pains and bathe myself in Voltarol once again and hopefully get a decent night's sleep now that I can black out my bedroom with the Venetian blind that's no longer pulled off the wall and lying on the floor. Because it's been that kind of week. I think I will be doing a live stream for 5090 on Sunday evening, but an old friend of mine is meeting me for Sunday lunch on Sunday afternoon, and I don't know what time she will be staying until. And frankly, I would rather spend my time hanging out with Helen than live streaming with you guys. No offence. I may well be doing a 5090 show on Sunday evening, in which case it will probably be on mastering the mix. So we covered compression 2 weeks ago on the 5090 show. We covered equalization last Sunday. So this Sunday's show, if all goes according to plan, will be putting the two together and coming up with a mix. So it will be about listening to your mix and finding what's wrong with it and trying to make it sound better. So I hope you'll be able to join me for the 5090 show, which will be at 2100 CET. 2200 CET, 2100 British summertime. And that will be, so I'm now getting date advice on the chat, which, thank you, Mel. Yes, she does indeed love chocolate, but she's not the only one. Right, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you very much for swinging by. Thank you very much for saying hello in the chat. Thank you very much for pointing out when things gone pear-shaped, which of course they always do, because it wouldn't be a headfirst only show without something going pear-shaped. Hopefully it's nothing particularly expensive that's gone wrong. But there again, you were talking to a guy who made his breakfast this morning, pushed the toaster lever down, and every single electrical appliance in the entire house went off, Why? There was a large sultana from my hot cross bun bridging two of the elements on the heating element in the toaster. But once that was removed, everything was okay. Power was restored and I was able to have my breakfast. Array of Emotion says, yikes. Yeah, I made sure I removed the hot cross bun detritus in the garden with the toaster not plugged in, and I did not use a metal instrument to prise the sultana out of the heating elephant. Heating elephant. Yeah, it's definitely time I got some sleep, I think. So until Sunday, or if not Sunday, until next Thursday, or if I catch you guys on 5090 or Facebook or chat or general stuff, whatever, thank you very much for being part of this. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay sane. And I'll see you next time.